Hey team, Brian Buckosh here, core design engineer with Brunswick Bowling. I managed to erase my original intro so you guys get this one instead. Today we're talking about the two newest releases from Radical Bowling, the Trail Blazer and the Payback, which feature the amazing new Radical core designs from legendary core designer Mo Pennell. Let's take it to the intro. Mopey was an innovator of core design and he was always one step ahead of the curve, and that was true of his development too, which is why we see two brand new core designs despite the fact that he's no longer with us. These are his latest core designs, but are they his last? You'll have to stay tuned and find out. We're going to start with the Trail Blazer, which has a 2484 RG, total differential of 052, and an intermediate differential of 020. Those numbers are very reminiscent of the Katana series. You'll remember that core had a very strong change of direction at the back of the pattern and really turned heads to the Radical brand. So this core is going to be like a follow-up, an improvement if you will, but you'll notice that the shape is radically different, pun intended I suppose. You'll see that it has a knob on top, a nose in the front, and it has a boat on the bottom that's connected to the core body by a neck. I run through all of these in detail on the Radical Rundown on the Radical Bowling YouTube page, so make sure you head over there. I put the link in the description. Make sure you check it out because I go through this new core design in depth and tell you exactly what each feature does and why it's designed the way it's designed. Of course, this core does have dynamic core outer core material. That's the blue stuff that you see when you drill into the outer. That's going to improve your carry percentage because it's not going to let the ball compress so much when it goes through the pins compared to the original standard inner core material that used to be used. And of course, this one is surrounded by, covered by, I guess, the Motion Magic cover stock. This is a hybrid cover stock, and it's got a compounded finish, which means it's going to give you plenty of length even for a hybrid, and it's going to have a strong change of direction. Although unlike the original pearlized Katana, this one is a hybrid, so it's going to give you a little more mid-lane security and a big sweeping back-end motion, so it's going to be a little more reminiscent of the Slash, albeit I think this one is a little stronger ball overall and a little more continuous with the improved Motion Magic hybrid cover stock. That brings us to Payback. Payback is a brand new core design by Mo Pennell again. This one contains a total differential of 0.041. You'll notice that it is symmetrical and it resembles very closely the bonus core. That's because these two cores were built in conjunction with one another. Shape-wise, they're very similar, but the ratios are different with the heights and widths, meaning that the bonus core has a total differential of 30. That's going to mean it flares less and reads later, whereas this core with an 041 total differential because of its shape difference is going to read the belly of the lane earlier because it flares more overall. I have a full video of this in the Radical Rundown, link in the description below. The Radical Rundown for the Payback has the comparison to the bonus core and their after drilling numbers to compare what happens when you drill into these cores. But don't go yet because I have more to say about the Payback. Like the Trail Blazer, it has dynamic core, that's the blue stuff that you see when you drill into the outer. That's going to give you the best chance to carry the best. And of course it's wrapped in the new AI27 Pearl Plus cover stock. That's a mouthful. That is an updated version of the original AI27 Pearl cover stock that you found on the original Intel, not the Intel SE. That means it's going to be a slightly weaker cover blend overall compared to, say, the forged cover that's on the bonus or the TP cover that's on the Intel SE, but it is going to be a strong overall motion in total because this ball flares more than both of those balls by core design, but also because this is a sanded pearl, which is very unique. It's one of the first ones, if maybe the first one that we've seen in the line for Radical. So the pearl in the cover is going to help it get through the fronts a little better than a typical sanded solid would, but the fact that it's sanded means that it's certainly going to read the mid lane earlier and more securely than any of the compounded or polished finish balls that you see in the line currently. So this one truly is a unique cover stock, both because it's an updated formula and because it's a sanded pearl. So without delay, now I'm going to take you to the comparison chart and show you where this and the Trail Blazer stack up with the rest of the Radical lineup. You'll see on our latest reaction chart that we have all the balls for an entire year, sorted by oil volume on the bottom, from lightest on the left to heaviest on the right, and by response to friction, with the sharpest responding balls at the top of the chart and the smoothest responding balls at the bottom of the chart. Our two newest releases, Payback and Trail Blazer, are highlighted in yellow. You'll see that the Trail Blazer is built to handle a medium-heavy amount of total oil volume and fits squarely between a sharp and strong response to friction. It's not quite as responsive to the friction as something like a Results Plus with its higher intermediate differential, but it has a more abrupt, more quick motion than the Incognito series. The Incognito series has a 17 intermediate diff, and it has a more benchmark rounded shape overall. The Incognito, the Informer, and the Incognito Pearl all share that same core design. The Trail Blazer is kind of the intermediate step, where it has a little more response to friction because it has more intermediate diff at 20, and the sharpest or the quickest responding balls are the Results series, the Results Plus with an 027 intermediate diff, and the Maximum Results with the strongest midlane at 030 intermediate diff. So these varying shapes give you varying looks. So what's the Trail Blazer best at? Well, I would say when your strong, solid, sanded, asymmetrical balls like Incognito, Informer, Maximum Results are simply too much or too early for the pattern you're bowling on, the Trail Blazer is the perfect go-between, where the Results series balls might be a little too twitchy because of the response to friction, or simply something like the Incognito Pearl might just be too little ball overall to go to right from an Incognito or an Informer or something like that. Then the Trail Blazer picks up right where those strong sanded ASIMs left off. When there's still a good amount of head oil up front when you're able to step in a little bit, but there's early mid-lane traction or there's just a little mid-lane burn, the Trail Blazer is really going to shine. Payback is built to handle a similar amount of total oil volume to Trail Blazer, but the shape is much different. You can see how much lower it is on the chart. It gives you a strong yet smooth reaction overall. It's going to be built to handle a medium to medium heavy amount of total oil volume as well. I would consider this to be a benchmark ball, albeit it might be just a little smooth overall to be perfectly benchmark. It's gonna give you a little more length through the front part of the lane with its pearlized cover stock, but the fact that it's fairly aggressively sanded means that it's gonna give you only moderate length before it responds to friction, and the response is relatively slow yet continuous, which means that it's gonna be really forgiving. I have a friend of mine that has one of these and really likes it because you can really hit on it. It's not going to overreact when it sees the dry, but it still has enough teeth because of the sanded pearlized finish that if you miss inside into the oil, it's still going to dig and give you a chance to get back to the pocket. So overall, I see this one being one of the most versatile symmetrical balls in the lineup currently. You see that it's a little weaker, a little cleaner, and a little more responsive at the back of the lane than, say, a Pandemonium Solid, which with its higher total differential and its more aggressive cover stock is simply just going to be earlier, diggier, and rounder than the Payback, which is just going to be, like I said, a little more versatile overall. And noticeably, a step up from the Intel SE or the Bonus, which of course are polished but also have slightly lower total diffs and flare a little less. That's all the information I have on these two brand new innovative bowling balls by Radical Bowling, available in pro shops everywhere right now. Make sure you subscribe and like my Facebook and YouTube pages, Bowling Buckosh. I make new videos as new releases from the brands of Brunswick come out. And while you're here, feel free to drop a comment, have a question, anything, write it below. I'm happy to respond. And of course, go to the description, check out those videos on the Radical Bowling YouTube and Facebook pages, the Radical Rundown, where I describe these core shapes in more depth. Until next time, thanks for watching.